What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Watch It in Action. I'm BouseFeenux, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Grineer Shotgun, the Heck. The Heck is a quad-barreled shotgun that boasts one of the highest pellet counts in the game. This thing is a total monster, and the fact that it does pure damage shouldn't dissuade you from using this weapon. I like it a lot, and even with the recent release of the Vacor Heck, this weapon is still very effective, which a lot of people were kind of upset when they released the Vacor Heck because the regular Heck was just really, really good. A lot of people still use this weapon on the speed run, and I used to, but now I currently use the Vacor Heck. So that being said, though, this weapon is easier to obtain and takes less to, get to. You don't have to max out your Syndicate standing with Red Veil, and you also don't have to make it to Master Rank 12. So that's really nice. The other thing with this weapon is it has extremely low falloff for a shotgun. The falloff maintains its damage at a pretty far away distance. And I think that's owed to mostly the long barrel of the shotgun. So, pretty cool weapon, very powerful, and we can squeeze tons of pellets out of this thing. It's just amazing. So, all that being said, let's take a look at the build here real quick, and let me show you what I got for it. I've had this build here for a while, and I used to use it on the speed run until the Vacor Heck came out, and I kind of took a liking to that one a little bit more, but as far as I'm concerned, this build is pretty standard. A lot of people use something very similar to this, and you can switch things around if you want, but I found this to be very solid. So, going through the mods here, we've got Prime Point Blank first up, and if you don't have this, you can use the regular Point Blank. It'll be totally fine. You just won't do as much damage. So, until you can get a hold of a Prime Point Blank, which I highly suggest you do at some point, regular Point Blank will work just fine. Next up, we have Seeking Fury here. The shotgun's reload time, pretty much any shotgun is going to take a while to reload. Fortunately for the Heck, though, it's got one of the faster reload times out of the shotguns, so that being said, though, it's still pretty slow, so this Seeking Fury gives us a little bit of extra reload speed, and then, of course, one of my favorite stats in the game, it gives us a little bit of punch through, which makes it awesome for taking out groups of enemies, adds to its crowd control, because with the Heck, it's got one of the narrowest spreads in the game, so, as for shotguns, so this is going to allow us to kind of take advantage of the crowd control capabilities of a shotgun while maintaining that, tight spread, so Charged Shell here and Contagious Spread are just my two elementals that I'm using right now. You can swap these out for just about anything else and, whatever elements you want to use at the time, but you want to make sure they're two 90% elementals. Don't be fooled here by this 70% status chance. That status chance is inflated because of all the multi-shot that we have on the weapon. So if you're looking at this and you're like, well, Bouse, isn't this considered a status weapon? 70% status for shotguns is basically weird. The status is divided among all the different pellets that the gun shoots, and that regular Heck shoots a ton of them, so this status is highly inflated. This is the status that you would get if every single pellet connected with the target, so keep that in mind. Do not put status mods on this weapon. It's not going to really do much for you. You're going to be really underwhelmed with how that works out, so taking a look here, we've got Hell's Chamber for more multi-shot, and then Scatter Justice, I think, is an essential mod for this build. Scatter Justice is a mod that you get from Steel Meridian, and you can get it pretty early on if you're pretty early on in your rep with them. It's not super hard to get, and if you're not going Steel Meridian, you can always buy this from another player for pretty cheap. I think it's going for about 10 to 15 plat right now, so that changes all the time, but you definitely want this mod. It's going to give you a crazy amount of multi-shot, and it gives you a Syndicate proc for Steel Meridian, which basically restores your health, and it does 1,000 explosive damage in a radius around you. So that's really nice. You definitely want this. Adds a little bit more utility to the weapon. Next up here, we've got Blaze. This is going to give us 60% extra damage and then 60% extra heat damage. So 60% damage overall, and then 60% heat damage over top of that. This works really well for this corrosive heat build that I've got going on here. You can swap this out for a different 90% elemental because I'm using two dash pulls here. So if you want to do that, go for it. You're going to lose a little bit of DPS, but if you want a certain element, you can go for that. Vicious Spread is actually a nightmare mod, or a corrupted mod, that is supposed to be two negatives, but on this weapon, the negative is actually a positive. As I said earlier, when we were going over Seeking Fury, the Heck has a very tight spread. It's one of the tightest spread shotguns in the game, and this helps widen that up a little bit, but doesn't make it unusable. So, Vicious Spread is actually really good because it gives us a huge damage boost of 90%, and then we get that extra spread on our shotgun, which is going to make it a little better for crowd control. So, you kind of utilize the effect of a shotgun, and it makes it more of a shotgun instead of a sniper rifle. So, all that being said, let's take a look at the stats real quick here. It's got really low critical chance. You still get a crit every once in a while, and it's always really impressive. But you don't want to rely on this. You don't want to build around crit chance at all. The magazine size is pretty small at 4, and you're going to be reloading this a lot, so you definitely want that Seeking Fury on there, or some other reload speed mod, whichever works for you, but I like the punch through you get from it as well. So the reload speed, like I said, is kind of slow. It's pretty fast for shotguns, and the Heck actually has one of the fastest reloads for shotguns, but that being said, is still pretty slow. As you see here, most of our damage is going to be done in the form of puncture. We've got 5,733 puncture damage with this build, and then the rest of it's spread out over slash and impacts. And then we got down here our elements. We got 5,000 heat and 15,000 corrosive. Now, be warned, just like the status, this damage is spread out over the pellets. So you're not going to get 15,000 damage a pellet. I wish that were true, because this weapon would be absolutely insane. So keep that in mind. Shotgun stats are a little weird, so make sure you're aware of that when you're modding this and you're like, oh my god, those damage numbers are huge. So that being said, though, this thing is still, like I said earlier, a monster, and I want to show you how it works against a couple of armored targets here. We're going to use our buddies, the Corrupted Butchers, and I feel really bad for these guys because I'm always beating on them. Although in the last Destraza video I did, they really got me. They got some revenge, so we're going to set these guys to level 90, and I'm going to show you how this weapon performs against them. So jumping down here, we're going to go ahead and lay into these dudes, and as you see, that multi-shot's really working for us. It's going right through them. And we're able to hit, a couple guys in succession. We took out 3 guys in one shot there. And there was the occasional super rare crit that we get, but you're seeing against these guys it's doing about 1,000 damage a shot. Against the Lancers, we're getting around 200 or so. They're a lot more armored, a little bit more beefy than our Corrupted Butcher friends there. And that reload speed, we're going to, it's not too bad, but you're still going to be reloading fairly frequently. Because, the small magazine size doesn't really help us out there. But, I mean, this weapon's, it's pretty crazy. It's good. It's still awesome. Even with the Vacor Hex still out, it's still a super useful weapon. You can still use it to kill just about any boss, and it's easier to get, because the Vacor Hex, you have to be Master Rank 12 to obtain, so... And you either have to trade with a player for it, for Platinum, or, max out your Steel Meridian rep, so... It is what it is. I like this weapon a lot. I think it's still definitely a viable choice. It is an older weapon, but it should be one of the ones that you pick up, you put in your inventory, and that you max out, in my opinion. I think everybody should have a good, solid shotgun, and especially with the sorties now, and how the sorties work, we have to have sometimes shotgun only, or bow only, or whatever. It's really good to have a weapon like this at your disposal. So, that being said, guys... Thanks for watching this video. You can find a full write-up description of this if you don't want to watch this video over and over to figure out, the high points of this weapon on BouseFeenux.com. So check that out. I'll put a link there in the annotation and in the description. And thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate the support. Have a good one.